there's those yellow raspberries. They're just as attractive as the red raspberries, and so, there's so much that I should point that out right now. There is so much that is not known. There is so much room for research, and we don't have much time. Yes?
You have Cusco dogwood, which we have on our property, and burning bush there, and we have one peach tree. Now, we had peaches, but we didn't have any, we only had a few peaches this year. It's a new one, it's a baby.
Oh, okay. And the peaches, I work with a lot of peach growers in Rhode Island, and there was one grower that was saying that he had a lot of brown rot, the fungus brown rot, up at the stem end of his peaches, close to harvest. And I think that could have been spotted wing Drosophila that got in there and softened up the berries, the fruit, and allowed the brown rot to grow. And other growers were thinking they didn't have a problem at all with it. So it's not such a big peach problem. It probably depends more just when your peaches are ripe also. So I'll talk about this a little bit, but early in the season, if you have early ripening peaches, you'll probably get by better than if you have September or even October. Some varieties go until October.
No, these were earlier. Yeah.
These are early.
But what would they eat off the other things?
Well,
Off the burning bush?
I don't know. What's the burning bush fruit look like?
Red berries.
Little tiny red berries
they
and
ripe?
many of them, but,
Yeah.
They're now? Okay. Yeah, I was. So, so all this, they have small fruit.
Okay, and the dogwood has the little,
That has that little, whatever that is,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so there is so anything that's got a berry, just about, is attractive to these things. Whether or not we think, they're good to eat or not. Most of the commercial, so this is more of a commercial host on this side, and those are more, wild hosts on that side. But it's, it's a raspberry pest, it's a blueberry pest, a bit of a grape pest, not so bad. Plums, maybe more of a problem as well. Cherries, this year they were first found in cherries in Connecticut, in the Northeast. So cherries can get hit pretty hard, but it tends to miss them a little bit. And I'll talk a little bit about the life cycle. So I found them this year in tupelo trees. I collected. Do you have any tupelo trees in your yard? They're ripe in September. Rich Coles was telling me that, there's a lot in Connecticut, because I always thought they're just kind of an ornamental tree, not too many around. But this pagoda dogwood can be in a lot of woods, and this was infested with spiderwing Drosophila. But what I've really seen a lot is Morrow's honeysuckle, or there's a few different honeysuckles called bush honeysuckles. And these berries are ripe in July, and so I think that this could be a real problem for blueberry growers, and that you really, if you've got these bush honeysuckle that are ripening at the same time as yours, you should get them out of your property. So I saw that this was on July 10th this year. I was at a trap site where I had set up traps, and I saw all these red berries on. Oh my gosh, look at that source of a population. And I collected some berries at the time, and they didn't come out. I didn't find any spiderwing Drosophila, but I went back 2 weeks later, and all the berries were deflated. All of them had been damaged, and I did rear spiderwing Drosophila out of here. So at least in Rhode Island, I would think around here also, there's a whole lot of this plant, and this one really should go, especially because it's ripening in July. It's so pretty. Well, that's what the spiderwing Drosophila think as well. Yeah. So autumn olive is another one. We have a whole lot of autumn olive in Rhode Island, and I imagine you do here as well. This ripens in September, and so as far as your blueberry crop, I don't think it's such a problem. But if you've got some on your property, you might as well get rid of it. We've got a whole lot of this in Rhode Island. But pokeweed is another one that on most farms I go to, I see that there's some pokeweed, and people think that this is a huge host for spiderwing Drosophila. And I know these were pictures I had taken last year, and it seemed like, but these ripen in August, or towards the end of August and into September. If you're having a late crop of fall raspberries or late blueberries, you certainly want to get rid of this as well. And what I was finding last year is I would see the pokeweed, and then I would go back a week later, and they were all the berries were shriveling up, because they were infested with spiderwing Drosophila, and it had just dried it all up. So this is another good one to get rid of. Porcelain berry, which I just saw at a farm this year, but this is a pretty bad perennial viney weed. Anyway, it's got pretty little blueberries, and spider drosophila like them as well. So last year, toward, I think it was August 20th, that Rich Coles said, oh my gosh, I found spider-wing drosophila. He was trapping for a different insect. He was trapping for sap beetles in strawberries, and he found spider-wing drosophila. And so kind of everybody in the Northeast went out and started trapping, and we were just using apple cider vinegar and putting a little bit of soap in. And the soap is just to break the surface tension so that when the insects would get on the liquid, they would sink rather than escaping. So I set up traps, and everywhere I set up traps in Rhode Island last year, this was starting in August, I found spider-wing drosophila. And I trapped up into December and caught, every week would catch more and more spider-wing drosophila. And these are, you can see, this is just the bottom of a cup that I was looking at. You can see the adults easily there, the males with the spots. So over the course of last winter, Rich Coles was doing a lot of work. Betsy Byers at Washington State University was doing a lot of research trying to find better baits, because these flies are attracted to unripe berries and as they're ripening, and so it didn't make a lot of sense that we were just using apple cider vinegar, which is a fermenting product, something that would be around once the fruit was already ripe. So she did a lot of work, and Rich Coles did a lot of work, and she came up with a super bait of mixing red wine and also the apple cider vinegar and molasses, and she had quite a recipe. Well, over the course of the winter, Rich Coles kind of settled on this bait, and this is what all the New England states, all the cooperative extension people in New England settled on, using this bait, which was using white grape juice and apple cider vinegar, and we mixed in lab alcohol, because it's very difficult through a university to say, I want to buy a bunch of wine. And write requisitions and get funding for wine, but we have lots of lab alcohol, so we kind of made our own wine with the grape juice and the lab alcohol and the apple cider vinegar. Rich was saying that rubbing alcohol probably could be used, but that's we have the lab alcohol, so that's easy to use. And then also I didn't end up doing this, but Rich was recommending adding salt to the solution, that it keeps it from this mother of vinegar, which is, I guess, a real term, which I had never heard of before. You ever heard it? It's vinegar.
Yeah, get growing stuff in it, yep.
Yeah, and you just get this really gross glob that you can't see anything in. So adding the salt to the traps can stop this. As I said, I didn't have trouble with it this year. So in 2012, as I said, all the New England states, we kind of agreed. We had a meeting in March, and we kind of agreed on what kind of trap we were going to use. I had my little freezer in the plant clinic. I do what's called the plant clinic, where, anyway, I identify insects and diseases. My whole freezer was filled up with grape juice for the season. And everybody was using these red Solo cups. I should have brought one. I didn't. Red Solo cups with holes in the side, like 1/8-inch holes, and a lid on top. And we put, a couple of inches, about 4 ounces of the bait, the apple cider vinegar and the grape juice and the lab alcohol in those cups. And we set up traps within the blueberry bush and then also in the woods surrounding, because several of us had noticed that in 2011 we would catch a whole lot in the woods surrounding the berry patches. It's also real important to have the traps in the shade, or so I have one trap that I have set up. This grower has raspberries, and they also have just young blueberry plants. So I set up one in their blueberry plant. Hardly caught anything all year long, because it's just too hot and dry. There's too much sun, the humidity is really low. So these traps really should be set up like really within the canopy, and either on the north side of the plant or in the shade. You'll catch probably more. So this is our URI blueberry patch, and there's blueberries just inside this fence, and we would catch more in the woods here than we would in our blueberries. So I was trapping in 13 locations in Rhode Island, and I got some people to help volunteer. So I had a couple of master gardeners. This is Charlie. He volunteered and checked traps every single week at one orchard. I had another master gardener helping me, and then people's students that were working for somebody else, I got them to agree to help. So that was really nice. So in Rhode Island, I set the traps in the end of June, June 21st, and caught my first spiderwing Drosophila the very next week that we checked them. And then it was just like a week after that, started finding the larvae in raspberries. And so this is an unsprayed setting, but raspberries, this was easy to find in this fall raspberry planting. All these just drooping raspberries is pretty remarkable. So, but then what happened? I just show you this. So this is at one farm that I trapped all year long, and so set up the first date I checked them.